Let's cultivate the bodhicitta motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of benefiting all other sentient beings. And with that kind of altruistic motivation, we should all participate in this teaching. I'm going to read about a page from this great treatise on the stages of path to enlightenment we call Lamrim Chemo, and it's going to be the third volume in your English translation to give you an oral translation blessing.
Namla shashi shawashi ba midi bishire niva so namu duba ni do yano ateo yeba mai de rashi de jewa namu konala shawa ma do she da rashi me ba no konala shawa tu shiro xe song so de la rang xin me ba wa yin rang xin yung go ba ti le ti le so yi go ba ti le na min zhong so ju lu xie ngo ma me ba ni rang xin go bi 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 yun de ka ba de ba dang de ba che me ba wa so wo yun de ka no che da yu zu ju ru xie ba wa ni o ma ba dang ngo ba ma wa ni yi ge de ba zha yang o ma be ni yun de ka ba min de la ngo ma ni rang xin go no yun de jang ye ba rong go go nyan o ma ba la me ba wo che da wa xie se ru pe yo ma wa ke xiao pe xiao ni rang xin go no ri ba ti yun de jang ye za ga gui ba de ba ngo ma wa na ma dang tu ba ra nang la won jang yun de ri be go ba o mi lu su xie ni te la me ba nang wo zhe ba de le du ku ja ni de me mo ma de yi mi ni so ma wa se ni ta ri lam se wa ra xi ba yi no xi song ni yi me de ma wa se zu ne lang me de do de la ku ja ne li de so me do xi me mai xi bi ni me ba ma wa se wa yin de se wa yin de le de so me ba de no me ba ma wa ju wa le ku ni he me de che ba wo ta de hyun zum de de wa kar sa ti o ma chi ji ta ka wa de ba se ta de ga za chap chia de ka sa de ro ti de ma yo na da in ti de ba jue sa in rong lu li ya in rang xi me na in me bi chag ma ri rang xi me wa da me wa yi ka ga ri ke de hi ja ba ni ma sung ya ti xi da di si se ma xia de sha
Gisela read from page 142 to page 144. Just to remind ourselves what we were talking about last time, where we left off, is that in terms of refuting object of negation in Tibetan called Gyeltsen, one of the things we mentioned is that if you refute too much, okay, capture means if you refute too much, that would be a problem in this particular context. And so according to our own system, meaning Madhyamikans, non-intrinsic existence or non-inherent existence, the Tibetan word is Rangxing Meba, and non-existence or Meba, they are not one and the same thing, or they are not synonyms. Okay? When we say that things do not exist intrinsically or do not exist inherently, we do not mean they don't exist at all or they are non-existent. Yeah? And so that distinction is very important for us to understand and keep on our mind. And to substantiate that kind of presentation, so we have a quote from great Indian master Aryadeva's Chetuk Shedak of 400 stanzas on the middle way. You can see at the bottom of page 142. And then we also have clear word commentary from great Indian master Chandrakirti. That is on page 143 in the middle section. Okay.
Sexually, song the secret to get it to the church, you go on and Rashima number Hana. When any call jump the day, Rang Shevi Lake number Rani, you and you, you know. Shares about 10 times the sweet the saw Joa lay. Seven Jola, led the dribble Kuata Pe Sherna, Chu me by Zoo Chova, you know. Study that day, Carsa. Nubama to some other Nubama, sometimes you don't send them a benji to them, some Nubama, Sigurwa. Said the Oma Rangi was that you must guide in the Rangi to Mina that the Joda Melo Rangi Madonna made over. Made was in the lead the Jibutaj card of those. In Germany, they lay so the Rangi by the Rang younger song to us. In the Rangiman lays the young layman in the Jibu your mother was. That is so much of creation.
I don't know, so. So on page 143, Geshe is commenting on Chandrakirti's clear word quote there. And to understand the argument here being made, we should recall that according to essentialists, now essentialists in this particular context include Chittamatrins or the mind-only schools and the schools below. Okay, that. And so they are essentialists in the sense that they posit or assert intrinsic existence of things. Okay? Things must exist intrinsically or inherently. Okay? That's their position. If they do not exist intrinsically or inherently, that means they don't exist at all, right? So in their school of thought, intrinsic intrinsic existence and existence are synonyms. Non-intrinsic existence and non-existence are synonyms, right? That's their position. If something don't exist intrinsically, then they can say, hello, they don't exist. Okay, that's what we say. Okay. And so now the Madhyamikans are arguing with them, how could that be, if you say that something don't exist intrinsically, then they should not exist at all, right? Which means then in the case of law of karma and outcomes, right? If the karma and outcomes don't exist intrinsically, in their school means they don't exist at all, okay? And so would you say that karma and its outcomes don't exist? They say no. Well, they don't exist intrinsically, okay? And which means they shouldn't exist at all. And in which case the Madhyamikan says, then how can we validate and accept statements that Bhagavan, meaning Buddha, has made, that you will experience the results of the karmas according to the type of karmas that you create, right? And if they don't exist at all, how can Buddha talk about, right? You create a karma and then you're going to reap the fruit of your karma. He can't, because they don't exist, right? They don't exist intrinsically, and that should mean they don't exist at all for you. So you're basically undermining the existence of law of karma and outcome. So that's what the Madhyamikans are, pointing out to them. So Madhyamikans are telling the essentialists that in our school of thought, we don't have that problem that you are facing here. Because what we say is that in the case of karmic actions and their outcomes, we say they do not exist intrinsically or inherently, but they do exist. Okay? In our school of thought, non-inherent existence or intrinsic existence does not translate into complete non-existence, just like you say in your school of thought. So therefore, we are very comfortable asserting that things do not exist in and of themselves intrinsically, but they do exist conventionally. So therefore, on the conventional level, karmas exist, karmic actions exist, and they can also produce their different results. Okay? And therefore, that's what we say, by creating the right kind of karmas, or we can say positive karmas, we assert that we will be able to go beyond the state of suffering or nirvana. We can accomplish nirvana.
Yeba sonan doba ni de nyam de yoba mai de rangshim da jeba dam la rangshi jeba nam khona la shawa ma do e sher da rangshi me ba nam khona la shawa thong e sher was ta yongje de chona ene rangshi me se lab sa de zala ene junde chaji dam sha yue se ya de chek zam de re ge dos ene 这个你里头那么下边详细没得的，你把他让下这个都是，他的开始就做了哇，得了他来的对不着，这样也我们也不要嘛的是，可是现在有的详细那么下些的让西没我可能听有么的，让西之后呢，你就是没咋，你别别个啥，就啥吧这不这不。那我怕谁啊？这不天气都这不咱听个嘛是吧？我抽都可能让家到的呢，因为现在到外面电车嘛有他个是吧？电车嘛他说呢，因为他不有的有几没的没几人嘛都是，差不多有我这没我谁啊？这没我有我几样这咱用嘛是吧？现在这详细的这个让西没完听过什么意思？电车开了没来吧？让西吃完详细咱的马桶啊这现在这个重要嘛？让西没详细现在听个的是。
So the debate still continues, as you can see towards the bottom of page 143. Now, essentially, it starts, telling Madhyamikans that, you say that things do not exist intrinsically, but then you say that you assert law of karmas and outcomes exist. Well, that seems to us like, makes no sense, and you're just giving a lip service to the law of karma and actions, because if they don't exist intrinsically, they can't exist at all. Okay? And here the Madhyamikans are telling essentially is, when we talk about functionality, how cause can produce a result or karma can produce its outcome, that kind of functionality, that is only feasible to those who assert that things do not exist intrinsically or infinitely. If you do assert that things exist intrinsically, then that kind of functionality does not make sense to you. Okay? Because what it really means is that, in your position, things exist in and of themselves. They do not exist dependently. Okay? And they do not have to exist dependently. Yeah? But when we look at the law of nature, how different types of causes can be created, right? And then they produce different types of results. What that tells us is about the interdependent nature of things and the law of relativity. Okay? Something didn't exist before, but then we can create a new circumstances and create new causes, and now something that exists before could exist now, or something exists now, due to creating some other causes and conditions, this thing can destroy it, and then they won't exist anymore. So all these things become feasible. This kind of functionality, it becomes feasible in our position because we say that things do not exist intrinsically, which means that things are dependently existent and things are existent in relative to each other. Okay? So that all makes sense in our position. But in your school, where things have to exist what we call independently, right? They do not need causes and conditions to be produced because they just exist intrinsically, and that's the nature of things, Yes.
Thì lẽ là nam mình dùng sao anh cho rồi sẽ ngô mà vậy rồi hiện có về việc chuyên chế cả bà chuyên chế cả bọn đứa bà thằng đứa bà chế mà bà cả bọn việc chuyên chế cả bà đứa bà thằng đứa bé thì chế mẹ bà sống vào chuyên chế các nó chế tạo về chỗ rồi chế bản đi ông bà đó ngô mà như cái đứa bé trai ông bà nó chuyên chế các bà mình đưa là ngô mà nó rằng sĩ của nó chuyên chế gì chuyên chế chẳng nhiều bà nó ngô nhau này sẽ ông bà là mấy mà chế tạo à chế xe rồi, ta chỉ thực sự chỉ chính trị chế mà trong sáng cho được rồi, thế rồi ta có gì rồi, thế rồi là rồi gì mà rồi gì có vậy thế, lấy được nam mình dùng sao cho nó sẽ ngô mà gọi ta ngô mà gọi đấy, ngô mà cái gì chuyên chế cả bà đưa bà, chế bà mà bà sống vào, thế ta anh thế yo cái ya chuyên chế mấy sự là gồm mà thì现在让西这么高的人，他让西们那人没这个了，我们这同样的chuyên chế高这个都是我的事。那chuyên chế 윤제 가 당시 때 조조 시원은 엄마 빠당 뭐뭐 이게 되봐 다양 엄마 배는 윤제 가봐 민들라 뭐뭐에 랑신고는 윤제 장에 보고 냠네 엄마 봐라 매번마와 세번마와 해서로 알리티 인자로 어떻게 가지래 이네 가서 랑신이 주발라 뭐뭐에서 랑신 뭐든 윤제 되고 말이 아니 다다 엄마배 tenjo가 시는 랑신 주발 윤제 되고 말와 어디 되봐 비동으로 봐 어디 뭐 다양사 엄마배 아니 윤제가 봐 랑신 주발 거배 리베 윤제가 봐 누구 말이스 뭐뭐 랑신 주발 리베 윤제가를 세워레스 그러봐 그래서 민들라 뭐뭐에 랑신이 이거는 윤제 장 예방 고고 냐네 엄마바 매번 시다 주시 시다 엄마발이야 저는 세번째 주에 두르서 어디서 라버리서
So Geshe is explaining the lines which you can read at the bottom page 143 and over the leaf 144 on the top. So basically, this argument between the essentialists and the Madhyamikans, we call the Prasangic Madhyamikans, is happening because first we must understand that both of them assert that cause and effect exists, or law of karma and actions exist. That's their position. Okay? So they both think that if you deny that, if you deny the existence of karma and outcomes, then you really become nihilist, okay, annihilationist. So that's their position. Both agree with that. Okay? So now, when the Madhyamikans say that things do not exist intrinsically, which includes the law of karma and outcomes, for the essentialists, it sounds like the Madhyamikans are denying the existence of karma and its outcome because they are saying they don't exist intrinsically. Wow, And so then they started to, allege the Madhyamikans that, you are become a nihilist, because now, by saying that things don't exist intrinsically, so you are really denying the law of karma and actions because if they don't exist intrinsically, they can't exist at all. That's what you are saying. But Madhyamikans say no, that's what, we are not saying that. And we are actually just saying a different, we say that they do not exist intrinsically, because of that they exist, see, the karma. You are hearing it differently. We are not denying the existence of law of karma and outcomes. As a matter of fact, we are asserting it, by stating that they don't exist intrinsically. We are making a position that they do exist. That's why it is possible for them to exist, But you are alleging us that we are the nihilists because from your perspective, if things don't exist intrinsically, they can't exist at all. So therefore, the Madhyamikans or the Prasangikas have become nuts here, right? You are nihilists, So there's Madhyamikans say that, you don't understand the point we are trying to make, and so we are trying to clarify that, And so that's the whole point of debate here, as you can see on the page, bottom page 143, right on the top. So the top one, it says, however, the Madhyamika does not deny cause and effect. Still, the essentialist calls the Madhyamikans nihilist or annihilationist, you see, because they think that, Madhyamikans, although they say, we accept karma, karma and results, but then we said they don't exist intrinsically. So for them it means, there is contradiction in that and you are denying it. Okay, so do you see the point? No, yeah.
윤제 리베가 고바 오모비 로스 셰네 텔레모바 나오스다 티 랑시 마조나 이니 윤제 사제 나자 메데바데 이니 고마다 이니 데바지 바레스 보기 오모 페샤와 페샤와세 데르와다 간제 몽복스기르 봐 맞아 티딱 로보 까말라키라다 쯔바시드자네 이니 스티스가 제예제 요리데 까말라시 고조를 미 카이지미 요마르스 하숑 고조를 기분 제 다다 요르스도 어디다 셔서 페샤서 맞아 저 페샤데 랑시게 마저와티 나 메과디 어느 엄마 가서 고마 데바지 바셰 고마디 랑시 마저 나 이는 지금 말이 랑시 접고 그래서 쯔쯔와 잡고 그러와 다 보고 뭐 저기 저봐 요마리 세다 저기 메르 요마리 시 디 오메 라빈 있어 다 거기 개발 되셔서
그렇죠. 알아 again 호상 권한저 오마바 인스고 권한
어다 그런 오마 있어 다 저기 메베 통도 샤라와
그렇죠.
다 오마도 같이 간다 다 메바데 충고 요뭐 지다 메바데 오메로 있어 거라
그렇죠.
다 고마 저서 베 진짜 지금 말이 윤제사 샤고 저기 메어사디 케링 말와
그렇죠.
다디 다다디 보여마도 저기 메바 케링 거라 저기 메바데 메바 찍소다
Right. No. So right on the top of page 144, there is a statement which says that most Tibetans, who claim to be Madhyamikans at the time, their position basically is more or less just like the essentialist position. Okay. So what does that really mean? That's what Geshe is trying to explain here. Is when we look at the historical debate between the great Indian Buddhist master Acharya Kamal Shil, and the great, the Chinese Hoshang, Mahayana, at the Samye, it is said that at that time the Hoshang was very popular. Okay, so when this, assembled for the debate, the Tibetan supporters of the Hoshang, they were just crowded. So Hoshang had a large following at the time. But the Kamal Shila was kind of lonely with few handful of people on his side, right? So you can imagine these two parties really, in terms of number, can't match each other. Okay? And so the Hoshang's position is, right, the philosophy of nothingness, isn't it? And but he claimed to be Madhyamikans. So the Tibetans who supported him and followed him said, we are the Madhyamikans, real Madhyamikans are us, and you are kind of a nuts here, because what you are saying is things don't exist intrinsically, right? But still the law of karma and outcomes function. That's why you are really nuts here, that doesn't make sense to us. We are the real Madhyamikans because we assert things exist intrinsically, so therefore law of karma and outcomes exists. Now you are saying that law of karma and outcomes exist, but they don't exist intrinsically. Well, if they don't exist intrinsically, they can't exist at all, So, you are a nihilist. That's how the debate goes between, right? The Hoshang Mahayana. So the Tibetan Madhyamikans at the time who are following Hoshang Mahayana at the time, so their position is the same as the essentialist position. Things should exist intrinsically. If they don't exist intrinsically, they don't exist at all. Okay.
What the Karsa? 뭐가 나고 세다 데레 가제 다다 거사 니가 정심에서야 되다 지도 매반이 고아 찍세네 랭고로와 어 되게 세다 데서 다 가제 중국에서 돈이 맞아 봐도 내기리도 요리라고로와 랑돈 좀 쉬고 그래서고로와 돈이多서는 있는 랑돈 쉬고 말으시고 다 가제 다 돈이 또면 돈을 가리셔 그래서는 되셔고로와 얘는 그게 취진 잡고 있나 이 최진 소음 최진 뭐 소음 최진 뭐 풍방아 되게 최진이 그 말아 봐. 어떻게 봐도 다가장 힘이 동을 셔고라. 어떻게 하고서는 인터넷 소소 그시를 뭐 지가 랑더자 셔고 그러죠. 다 디데 남샤도 봐 먹어도 있는 랑더 셔고 셔고라. 제가 뒤진다 셔다 디레서 디가티 단다 풍방아 되 최진 많이 봐도 정신매에 동들 이거 말아 봐. 세다 티 가자구 마신상 세다 티데지리아 이 되게 가서 lokpa shugni 이 가자구 마세바 세다 딱동세야디 다가서 최진의 소화물 소화물에서 티데스와 매와 다가서 그러기면 동세서 이 윤제 샤지 가가가도 그러와 세다 곧 잡시무 시부레서 그래야 다 장일 있는 분들 요다 땅마 제마서 뭐 거기 샘잡에도 넘버리부터 수되는 때는 제소스고 거기다 이 러시면의 베스트에 오멜 다다마들 셈점하게 데버트바 있어야지 만에 야가요 그래서 디도 이 유력비에 랑도 먹으셔야요 그게 탈바다 저도 오마시는 탈바토야 요러와 그래서 디지어 디다 따외는 누슈도 있어 다 거기
So once again, I just want to reinforce this notion that non-intrinsic existence or non-inherent existence, Rangshin Meba in Tibetan, and non-existence, complete, right? Meba, you see, are not synonym from Pasangika Madhyamika point of view. But for the essentialist, they are synonym or one and the same thing. With me? So it's very important for us to be able to understand that difference. Otherwise, we'll get stuck, in the essentialist position. And so what the essentialists are saying is, yes, we assert the law of karma and actions, and you really need to engage in your practice and do the things properly because they will bring fruits. But that's all until you realize emptiness, right? Their version of the emptiness, shunyata. So which means, yes, you need to get rid of the delusions, the things like that. You need to cultivate the positive actions. So all of these things we assert, essentially say, until you realize the emptiness. Once you realize emptiness, do as you please, right? So just say hallelujah, do whatever you say. It doesn't matter really. Now, you are free, liberated kind of thing. So there's a problem with this notion, you see. Why? Because their view of emptiness is not the kind of emptiness that we talk about in the Madhyamikan school of thought. As I explained this to you some other day, for them, emptiness means, like Geshe used the kind of classic Tibetan name called Chöjin. So I translate with my whatever liberty I have here, translate to my name, Tenzin. Okay. So now we ask who is Tenzin or what is Tenzin, whichever way you want to say, right? And so then we put Tenzin under what we call ultimate analysis or investigation. Okay. Is Tenzin his form aggregate, or is Tenzin his aggregate of feelings? Or is Tenzin his aggregate of discriminative awareness, or is Tenzin his aggregate of consciousness? Whatever. You go through the 5 my physical mental aggregates, and then you don't find any of my aggregates as Tenzin. And then they conclude as essentialists, oh, Tenzin doesn't exist at all. Because why? I couldn't find him. Are you with me? Yeah. So the way they do analysis is right, just like the Madhyamikans do, but they started it off wrong because they do not have the clear idea or the precise understanding of the object of negation, what is being refuted. Are you with me? Yeah. Because, if you say, who is Tenzin, what is Tenzin, and you look at my body, you look at my mind, you don't find any of this as Tenzin, right? Then you conclude, well, Tenzin doesn't really exist at all, so he can do whatever the hell he wanted. Well, sorry, that does say hell, but, because after all, he doesn't exist, really, If he exists, either he should be his body or his mind or something else, and we couldn't find him. So now he's liberated. Just do whatever he please, right? That is a wrong. Are you with me so far? So Madhyamikans say that's the problem. That's not called, emptiness from our perspective. In order to understand emptiness, you must have a precise idea, understanding of what is being refuted or negated, and then you put it under analysis, ultimate. When you don't find it, it doesn't mean things do not exist at all. It only means things do not exist intrinsically. So the lack of intrinsic existence is what emptiness is. That's what we say. Are you with me so far? Okay. So that's what I think we are talking about here. Yeah.
Sen tarbe lam sawa sheba ino she song de yumi ni su ma se ju ni lang me ten do de la ku ja ni lin zhe so me de she me ma she ba she be ni ni me ba mo sawa yin de de da ka ji de yun zhe se de sing de ja wo ba sa di rang xin go be ri bia ga ka du de ni ka de rang xin tu ba me ne de de ka de yo de ni yang ju yo ba ha yo ma la ro ba ba ti sa di lin da Kujaini Mevan killing Maris, you may need smart, it is done, Ranchi Yuba Maiba, Tanya de Meba Maiba, what Tilegic Nishi Namsha Ten Palni, and Tarbell saw she use. What he loved it, said, he 6 years did 6 ya, and the Ranchi Yuba down Carte made the Shima Meva saw in this said 6 years dig. And Jidong Meva the Ranchi Meva, Jidong Yuva the Ranchi Yuva, what did Keva say Cheshas? The Gaga Nodra de Conje, 6 to the pigeon, not to the Gaza Keva Captics of the Jago Marva, she that be Mila, that Taranche, Sheraji would away the Java, who got the Rajito on the young stars, the love to the and so we damage him with the Todun Cheva Yomarva. Said, what did he just do the Warva? Said the truth until 2 or that the Shungita. Yashung Sega Chia, the career said, Buddha Paltashe, Shijabashi, 6 said that this of the Usarava. But it that 6 Tansanta, Shijaba, what is that? Here, this is the dig Geshe Jan in Ya Yuba the Mevama, Rosi, what the Meve Chabar, what is 6 is show a shade to us that Rabda of Shiva.
No, so a lot of the things that's explained here is really trying to clarify a certain statement made by Chandrakirti in his clear word commentary. Okay, so what the Pasankhya Madhyamikans are saying is this is our positions. On the one hand, we say things do not exist intrinsically. Okay, on the other hand, we say that things are not conventionally non-existent, which means things exist conventionally. Are you with me? When we put too many negative words like what? What did he say? So that's our position, okay? And so the problem here is, oftentimes in the sutras, Buddha's, the sutras, Buddha would talk about emptiness, and sometimes he would qualify it with the object of negation or refutation, gakta. But other times he will simply continue, right? Saying, this don't exist, that doesn't. Then people get confused. A good example maybe for us to use is, what is in Heart Sutra, right? Prajnaparamita Hridayam Sutra. Okay? At certain point, then you will say, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no, right? So if you look at it, no nose means no nose. Then you think that's what it is, right? Because Buddha did not qualify it. He said, I do not mean inherently existent nose doesn't exist. He didn't say that, right? He just said, no. No form, no nose, no. That's why the problem is. So how can we best understand statement like that? Buddha has often made in the sutras. So is that when we follow the authentic master commentaries, and the 3 best examples are Buddha Palitas, work called Buddha Palita. Okay, so he got a clear explanation of these things. And the other work is Aryadeva's Chatukshedaka or 400 stanzas of Madhyamika. Right? He got it all right. And another word is the Chandrakirti's clear word commentary. So if we follow these great masters, then we will really understand what Buddha meant by all the statements. Otherwise, we can get confused, because Buddha says sometimes, this doesn't exist, that doesn't exist. As if Buddha is saying they really don't exist at all, but that's what he doesn't mean. Right? So I think Heart Sutra is a good example for us. Okay.
Well, the cool Lindelas of made the shape in Metase. Meva, your coach and the Mundu the Geo. When the Geshe the Chivalas, Linderson de the Ranshi made the Shen Joba, Devin, She Marine, Yuvama saw in those. You need Ranshi to Maris. Love the Zanta, the Metas Casa, Yutasegora, Yudarava, Tiny Metarava. You did Mundu, you did do the city, Metaserava. In a year and you travel to Maris, Ladizan, and Yutasegora. Was it 660 called Segura Muzu Singidua? Said that what the Kungshin, Takanji Raprashi Warva.
No, so. So in the second paragraph on page 144, where Chandrakirti responds, this is in his clear word commentaries, we are not nihilists. We eliminate the propositions of existence and non-existence. We illuminate the path of liberation. The rest of the passage shows how he avoids the positions of existence and non-existence. Okay? And so the explanation given on this particular things is in order to realize or understand what emptiness is, shunyata, we have to be free of the 2 extremes. Are you with me, right? There's the extreme of eternalism, we call takta in Tibetan, right? Tak as in permanence, okay? And then there's the extreme of nihilism or cheda, that means you deny everything, okay? So we have to avoid these 2 extremes in order to understand what emptiness is. So what Chandrakirti is saying is, this is how we present emptiness. Okay? By making a statement that things do not exist intrinsically or inherently, what we are doing is we are free of the extreme of eternalism. Are you with me? We are refuting inherent existence or intrinsic existence. That is one extreme. Okay? by asserting that things do exist conventionally, we are refuting, right, the other extreme, the extreme of nihilism, right? So that is our position of emptiness, where it is free of these two extremes. Okay.
Rangshi meva shashi medebe nyeba sonon dogo shewa bani choji meba memaye rangshi meba mawo she maye mejang ngar gebe yong rangshi mena yunri medeba taduk po meni she ngoba maye zoba was tangi kara yo sonon nizo se zonge suris na ngoba maye zores kyorang ini rangshi chiba yo mara di yunri yos lagdo was Sita yunri yus lava de rangshi mi say de ta gewad sha de ba gu ma lo sin na yunri yun de rangshi yo go ba ta rangshi mi yunri yus de gewad sha ba sita jo kan lava ta mo ji thong da da jo na me ba ma do o de lava de kar se da ni ngo ma lo le sin na rangshi mi ne yunri the go ma ba o di ngo ma ko no de ba de es
So the essentialist, when they listen to, as we have talked about this previously also, Madhyamikan's position, it sounds like, Madhyamikans are contradicting themselves in some sense. Because on the one hand, the Madhyamikans said, yes, just like you, we assert law of karma and actions, the outcomes, okay? But then on the other hand, the Madhyamikans say that things do not exist intrinsically. Yeah. So for the essentialists, how can you say that? Things don't exist intrinsically, and then at the same time you said, I respect karma and I accept karma. Because those two things don't go well together. It's a contradictory position from their point of view, right? For the essentialists, things exist, they exist intrinsically. If they don't exist intrinsically, as the Madhyamikans say, they shouldn't exist at all. But then Madhyamikans say, no, we're not saying that. We say things exist still, right? Then there's you're just full of contradictions, making no sense here.
Ti le da oma be ti le yunri yunri bu jewa soji shashi na rangshi yo ba la miruwa da rangshi me ba khona le te da rongwa song so sta ti kaji kada yo ome te ju ni ya da ene demi de bi ba che nga jo tsu gang ga she kaji ene rangshi chum de demi chou gu se demi chou so na pe ni yunri de te ma ji na na ba tham ji de de wi gu se pe da sa won de de 그래서 누구 사고를 된 거라와. 그래서 이 때때만 남바 탐지 된 거 그래. 때때는 이 사고를 뒤서 누구가 사고를 때때만 샤거로 왔어. 때때는 이 사고를 뒤서 누구 요구 시그래서 거기 다 어메리카다 알리 잠깐 작조요 뭐. 다 뭐지 뭐더라. 어디에 간가 이 라지 좀 자신 메데 리파 뒤에 던 거라와. 그래서 이 저런데 눈디셔는 라지면에 메고서 이 저런 눈디레스 라지 저번 자지 되고 뭐 라지 매번 자지 되게 되다 뭐 진짜 인수다.
So Madhyamikans use a variety of logic or reasonings in order to refute intrinsic existence and true existence, right? And then those reasons are also facilitate in the acceptance of law of karma and its outcomes. Okay. And so from Madhyamikan point of view, of course, we cannot to talk about all different reasons Madhyamikans use here. Just to give a sense of it, according to Madhyamikans, okay, if we go with the essentialist positions, let's say things exist intrinsically, okay, and then they also say that cause and effect exists, right? So let's play with their position. Madhyamikans say, okay, then there's a lot of contradictions come. Here, if things exist intrinsically, let's think about a seed and a sprout, right? So the essentialists will say these things exist intrinsically, but still they have a cause and effect relationship. So from a Madhyamikan point of view, if things exist intrinsically, then they must never be inseparable from one another. Okay, whatever dependence they have on one another, the sprout dependent on the seed, right? Germany, that kind of dependence must be what we call eternal and inseparable from one another. Okay? And in which case, then we have to assert that a sprout exists at the time of the seed. Okay? That means this particular case of cause and effect exists at the same time, which is impossible according to the law of nature, right? Because the cause must precede the outcome. Cause cannot exist with its outcome. Right? So that's what the problem is. in your position, when you say that things exist intrinsically, then that means a sprout must exist at the time of its cause, the seed. Okay? And they cannot be inseparable from each other. And then what is the point of a cause having a cause if it already exists with it? So for Madhyamikans, that makes no sense.
Hijab Joalek, da no never ma ide. They Rojo ma ibi shero. Chi over ma chichi come yam chena. My detention Rojo ma ibi shero. Chu ma chip ma hina. Deji Rojo ma, young Deji Rojo, Tong Kansi Chen, Ranshi maybe told the Ranshi, Ma Chepa, Tong, you must the Mikuta, Sunyeta, Chester Tonga, Triba, the Menunda, so be Ranshi Jen, River Tong, the Tongva Yeda, Davi told he, then did in Debe, over you make it, tying so more city tendo, started Gaje. Hijab Jawa, daughter in Java, Hijab Jawa.
No, sure.
But this is Yasi Karsa. That over my this design, you need to start me lago mercy or what?
No.
It is 10 days lago, yes. They enjoy my Chelsea. Chuchi over my chicken yam, over my chicken, over my chicken yam, Rogi to a Mario, the Mario Maris. There's in George or Ma ibi, Ni Shero, see. Rogi to a mamma, the 10 days, shall start because you did to go around, 10 you listen, 10 days, and they may be Rogi Mato Chavo, what did it? The church much church, Jim Marshi Jen, then George or Mo. Young days in George, Tong Kansi Jen, Ransi maybe told the Ransi, my Jape, Tong down. You must make you that because you must make you tell us, Zubia Tong Kigora, or Zubia Tong Ransi Majani, you must make you Nashi, you just has it those Sunguyas. So the quite Rashima do give you the currents in the church times you didn't it was. Then in the pretty total was the Royal took those Kana Madio, think Gawado was, you get you did that.
At the bottom page 144, we have a quote from Acharya Chantakiri's commentary on Arya Deva's 400 stanzas, or Chatuksheta. Okay? And so the quote begins, "We are not proponents of non-existence," means we are not nihilists, "for we are the proponents of dependent arising, because we say everything is pratit samudpat, everything exists dependently." Okay? That's what the Chantakiri is saying. Okay, and so it says, what does dependent arising mean, really? If you say things are dependently existent, things are pratit samudpat, what does that really mean, right? Then it says, what it means is that, it says, what's the meaning of dependent arising? It means the absence of intrinsic existence. That's the meaning of dependent arising. Okay, so according to the Madhyamikans, or the Prasangika Madhyamikans, dependent arising is, the what we call the best reason and adequate reason to establish emptiness of intrinsic existence of things, everything that exists. Are you with me? In a logical syllogism, they will say, whatever the subject it is, right, X, Y, Z, does not exist intrinsically. Other way of saying is, it is empty of intrinsic existence. Why? The reason, because it exists dependently. It is pratit samudpat, right? If something exists dependently, if something is pratit samudpat, it must necessarily be empty of intrinsic existence. Okay? And there is a logical pervasion according to the Prasangika Madhyamikans. Okay? And so that's why he said, we don't mean like things don't exist at all. We are not nihilists. We are saying that actually things exist dependently. Things are relatively existent. And we give you a lot of examples here. Look at the illusions, the magical illusions and the mirage. And, these are the examples, to talk about how things appear in one way and they exist in another way, And so what dependent arising means also is the sense of relativity. Things could only exist in relation to something else. Okay? Intrinsic existence means things exist independently, in and of itself. If the intrinsic existence can speak out, this is my translation, I don't need you. I can exist by myself. Okay, that's the attitude of the intrinsic existence, right? I don't need anybody, I don't require anything. I can exist in and of myself. But the mathematician says, hello, there is no such thing like that, So don't give me that one. Everything is dependently existent, okay?
Dendri to Ranshi Majabali Shebe, Nobu Yuva Ma Sela, Yumala Soba the Drive, Jibu Jumati, Dendri to Temeni, Nobu Mama saw you, Tata Hijab Drive, the German Sigi Java de Rova. Said that Dendri to the any Karsa, Ranshi Majabal Sheza, any Yudaka or Sirva. That Yumala Soba Drive, Dendri Kela, and the take any. 타이 메세 메타티카고레스 어디봐 뭐뭐 사이 노스 거기다 타이 세네 근데 런시 메게 타이디 자지 탐지 태와디 좀으로와
So Jerumbuche Olamazongaba was sitting right next to me here. So he's explaining Chandakirti's commentary on the 400 stanzas. He said, so what really Madhyamikans are saying is that things exist dependently, okay? So they're saying that things are empty of intrinsic existence, right? And that position eliminates the extreme of eternalism, as we talked about earlier. And by stating that things are dependently existent, that eliminates the extreme of nihilism. Because, Madhyamikans said, we accept things exist, okay? This is how it is. So therefore, the Madhyamikans' position of emptiness, or presentation of emptiness, is free of those two extreme viewpoints.
Then woman Ranshin Shevatan, Tonshi Neval Sheva Nile, Novo Yobama, woman Ranshinki, Chuba Konal Chala, Novo Meber Mavi, Novoni, Tonshi, Novo La Shati, Tinisana, Ranshin Kajings, Yamatabu, Yunde Yobatem Cheros. 지단 야고봉 고버스 다 도시 내발 고봉인데 다 남제들 고봉 고버스인데 도시도 뭔가 몇 통화 다음 주 가서 고버스 거라 현다 고버스 말아 진짜야 고버스야 될 애니 런신 거야제다 도시 내발 고봉 거야 니요레스 다다디 고버스야 돼 런신 고버스야 돼 어디 매야 되와 어디 레스와 고모 런신지 저바 코나를 샤라我没办法，但我没啥要没他谁家去了哇？真的，我们同学那边我们下的是的，我没法适应的是的，这段时间我没法适应了，但他妈是那个是我没法的话的，谈到天嘛是，我们可能同学能给得了呀，同学们那个塞住我了哇，我的，我没办法的，我们的同学们我们下的，听你说那让心干的有么大不？ini junjo yo bate mi shero se seda da ini goba se adi khoje karsa rangshi yo goba yo ba se adi rangshi yo ba she goba me ba se adi tanyi de me ba she da ti pa se yin so da rangshi me ge tanyi de shaji ta ji te ba zhou wa o de chudong zhou ti yin se se
we on page 145 it is I think from the top the third depending on how you look at it, it's the third paragraph or the second, the big one. And I think here the discussion is based upon understanding the usage of the term ngurbo. Okay, the Tibetan word ngurbo, which is translated as a thing here. Okay, and so that's clarification is needed. Otherwise, a lot of confusion arises. The Tibetan term ngurbo, which is translated as thing here, it could mean, on the one hand, usually when in the what called the Pramana Vadika text, the valid cognitive text like that, when we say ngurbo, it refers to the functional things which are produced by causes and conditions, things which can function. Okay? But here when we say, thing doesn't exist, this thing really refers to the intrinsic nature of things. Okay? So things do not have intrinsic nature. Okay? So that's why it's very important for us to understand. Not this thing doesn't refer to the functional things, it refers to the intrinsic nature. Okay? And so on the other hand, when we say things do not exist, in that particular case, things are not functionally existent. So I think this particular section is trying to clarify the usage of the term in Tibetan, a term called ngurbo, which is translated here as a thing. So if we don't understand what's the real meaning of a thing here, then we will fail to understand the Madhyamikan's position on middle way of the emptiness. Because Madhyamikan's, as we said many times now, we are repeating our mantra, that Madhyamikan position on emptiness is free of the two extremes, the extreme of eternalism and extreme of nihilism. Okay? By asserting that things are empty of intrinsic existence, Madhyamikans eliminate the extreme of eternalism. By asserting that things exist dependently, then they eliminate the extreme of nihilism. Okay? And that's how Madhyamikan's position is free of those extremes. Okay.
Here, Shijabe Javale. Here, Shijabe Javale. Young Chi, David Eugene, Chemba, Medam. Made he, Tiki Subma. Coach and then John John, Sewa Marino. This year, you went to the nation and Chemba, the log by Ton Lobaconan. He Lobuni, number job and Zedo, teacher, Chembe, Mikbadi, David Gobo, get the Rangu, you T. Chemba, Tola, Nibi, Rangu, Trebakinani, Kangse, David Gobo, Ranshimeva T. Tela, Nibi, Chembayang, Ranshimeva Inde, teacher Loba, she shall trouble. Loba, she shall, Ranshimeva. And the thing in Georgia, he shower tongue, Ton he, Mainum, my party, Gobo maybe Tone, Loberto Mayuno. They will go number times in the Meva and Mind, Chamber shower in be shelter, tea and jibut toy shellos. That is the she joined Joal because this was that. The Rangi may have to take my go my do is a country. And never told him about the Yoravas. Rajimani made over anything the Chebaja or Shagmar, Chebaja the Yoris. Chebaja, the Chebaja, the Raji never thought Chebaja, the Raji maybe the Chebaja show. Raji Treva in a Tombo Picket, Chembasi to Zangelia, Curtis Gorova, Nil, so you'll get engaged, younger Changorova. No. So this you just engage with the Majima your Marcetta. This is the Rangi Trosona. Yama in the Tomachi get the Jul Tembating Konzati in the Tati Sonza, in the Queen Demit on his shadow or what is the Rangi of the Queen in the God Temple so the legato Kati Jul Tembating Maris. And the Rangi of Soso, Demi Chagravas, there is the lazy. Some of them had choosing Tia Marva, Tales also Tia Mother, because I said that they can duck Tia Marva. Said that the Temba, but the children said that the Rangi, you did with Rangi, maybe you did on race. Temba, Temba, you had any Tudo, Tudo inside the Rangi, Mother race out of us. Rangi, they made in the legion you are choosing me, David Nagi, Tembaja, Chagras, what the part don't do.
We're on page 145. The Chandrakirti's commentary on the 400 stanzas. There's a question and answer and a big passage there, okay, which runs almost towards the end of the page. And the debate here is, essentialists are still, debating with the Madhyamikans. They said, you say that things don't exist intrinsically. Okay, that means things shouldn't exist at all. In which case, do you guys accept something called memory consciousness, something you can remember you did in the past or whatever or not, right? And if you could, then how can you say things don't exist intrinsically, That is their position, right? Madhyamikans say that, no, we accept that. We accept that people can recall what they saw before or what they did before, whatever, That kind of memory concept exists because it is a dependently existent, That is our reason. Okay? Otherwise, if things exist intrinsically, then people can't remember, because then things would be unrelated with each other, And just like, person A cannot remember or recall what the person B did or said somehow, because the person B has to remember what he said, did or didn't do, whatever, right? Because that memory is his or her memory, We cannot recall some other persons did that we never saw or witnessed it. We just can't, okay? Because we are two different people, isn't it? And So that's why he said, in your position, when you say that things are intrinsically existent, that's what happens, that the person who did something in the past would be one different person, and the person who remembers something else would be a totally different person, because these two people have nothing to do with each other, because they are intrinsically existent, and they don't need each other, really, Yeah. But we are not saying that. You see, the memory is more feasible in our position again, because due to causes and conditions, we can remember things, because things are dependently, existent. So that's what the mathematicians are telling the essentialist.
Deva gobo na naba tabji de meba de mai de cheba sha yi be che de ti ribu to ye she ro rang ngo ye ba mai de ta ba yi ta yi she she da ngo zi ba te she ro she deva la so ba de da yi me jang me la rang shi che ba yang me ba tang lo ba zu be to den ji to yin ji ngo bo me be to me ba song be chue de na rang ngo che ban de na ngo bo ma 예배 타동아 인제 대다 예배 점디 뭐니 누구 뭐 예배 뭐 메노스 어디에 가지 대배 고번 남 탐지디 메바면 대배 고번 탐지 메바 말이 메든 대배 고번 전부 예배 있었어 듣고도 와 대배 여자인 정시 메바로 계지 정시 좀나 에네데 양면의 짠 전야면 샤가 양면의 딱바지 전고 제자가 샤그랬어 삼디 메데부터 유재소도 다 제예메도 전고 말아 이신도 거랑 이 저바 말아 기억되어 그러와 어시데 디데도 와스 세다 베 러이 전에 딱바 태도래 디데 말아 삼점 메데야 태도 와스 세다 디 너즈 세야 되니 랑시 저바 뭐 탄이디 바 뭐이스 뭐 독스 방이스 제목이 록바세야 되 랑시 버서 록바세 디데 라르 뭐 땡 미베 록바세야 동시베 동아 디데 라고 말이스 디즈
So we're finishing off that big quote from Chandrakirti's commentary on 400 stanzas, right at the bottom of page 148. Let me read that particular section. A past thing is not entirely non-existent because it is an object of memory and its effects can be seen. It also does not exist. It also does not essentially exist, for if it did, it would have to be permanent, and it would have to be directly apprehensible. So explanation given on this is, according to mathematicians, yes, people can remember, things they saw or did in the past, but that memory is dependent on what they did before or said. Right? When you assert intrinsic existence, you cannot assert that kind of dependent, interdependent relation between things, because you said you don't need it, right? You can just remember out of blue, nothing, So we are precisely saying that because of dependent arising, people can recall what they said or did or saw before, because it's dependent on that, right? If you didn't do anything, there's nothing to remember. If you didn't hear anything before, there's nothing to recall, you see? That's why we said all these things are possible because things are dependently arising. But if things do exist intrinsically, as essentialists say, then there are only two ways to look at it. Either somebody has to remember it permanently, forever and forever, right? Because there's no reason why somebody doesn't remember it forever. Why? Because it's not dependent on causes and conditions, circumstances, because it is, right? Or that you can never remember it at all, because things have to be dependent on causes and conditions. With me, I know it's such a high philosophical debate, So that's,
대신에 신앙 거보는 동시에 동배 동시에 니베 동배 몸에든 되는 거보 메아마 메다 동안 인게 대다라시 메바 마웨니 메다 동안 메노 대다리 이메데 마와다 라시 메바 랑무 줘봐 당 여바자 체바 마셔봐 여메기 탈동안 거바는 쿠자 메바 메마이 여바 메마이 여바 마이노 셰세로 여바 메마이 메바 마이 셰세와이노 셰마와 자라 레베니 예디샤다 게 예디샤다 마시 우메토 중세장 미쇼케스 디브다 거기다 티킨도 신호고 간갈이야 ene toji ne ba tong ba ise na ene meta du ma rangshi me ba ise meta du ma ba se wa
No, so.
tida rangshi me ba me we ene meta tong me no se ene tida yi me ba tang rangshi me ba ta tida song zang ene rangshi me ba tang jidang me be che ba ma je se rangshi yi ba da jidang yi be che ba ma je se ene tida ma je se ne ene ko je yi ba ma se tida sik zang de ra shi de sha no si ro wa
No, so.
zang de re ne gyundu sha da tida la de gyundu sha da 그런 땀마지 가가 견들이 그래 싫어와
No, so.
근데 오메 도중세 장니 쉐토 말이지다 쉐토 말하다
No,
다디 부역이다 이게 되다 송아 되기라와
no, so. So Geshe read from the bottom page 145 to the 146. So basically, what is explained here is this, that Madhyamikins are not denying, the existence of functional things. Okay? If they do, yes, then they become nihilists, but they are not. They are simply refuting intrinsic existence of things, which is not the same as, right, the existence of functional things. Okay? So as we said this before many times, if one fails to differentiate between these different types of existence, if you will, or the extremes, I should say, on the one hand, non-intrinsic existence and non-existence. If you don't understand the difference between the two, then we are just simply playing with the words, and the debate goes nowhere, because that's we're just going round and round, right? So it's very important to understand the distinction between non-intrinsic existence, rangshi meba, and I'm trying to remember this one, and non-existence, meba. Okay. Similarly, it's important to differentiate between existence and intrinsic existence. They are not one and the same thing. Okay? So if we fail to understand the differences between these different polarities, or whatever you want to call them, then we will not be able to understand the Madhyamika's position on emptiness. Okay? And we will find a lot of contradictions in our own positions, because we are playing with the words, we don't understand the meaning, and then, it just, we get all in the loop,
Here the Gaba Shibi said no, Raji Yumi Nikala Sobe, Nila Sobe, Dagba Shene, Gobe. He is the Kazo Shoga, Rani Kelang by Long Hindu, Tini Kaya members, Toyu be chair, Ton de be chero, starting Nangeting at Tere, Kaji. There are any Sosu by Henda Gavachi, any Raji Yabari, Mebari, those Taxis in the Gagu to us. The Gaza Dalda, Sosu Kela Delia, Raji Yuba, my Beva, my Yuba, my Beva, my Slavdena, in Taxis Yama, Pusum, Yuba Beva Karma, Raji Beva, Yuba, my Nayan, Pazaji Yosho, but the Ganzu Tera got the Medes Lavna. In the Tavare, Aneris, Seja Yomara, Tavane, my Mumora, Kazu Shumara, but Tina he is, cannot Nangi themselves did that.
No, so. So what Madhyamikins are saying is, this, that if something exists, there are only two possibilities for that thing to exist. One, it should either exist intrinsically. Two, it should not exist intrinsically, right? There is no third possibility here. Are you with me? So if you say that it exists intrinsically, that means, you cannot accept the non-intrinsic existence. But if it says things don't exist intrinsically, then you cannot say they exist intrinsically, because those are antitheses of each other. Are you with me? There are only two possibilities of existence, and which one is it, right? That's what we have to be sure about. But if you say something like, oh, no, our position is things are neither existent nor non-existent. Sounds kind of beautiful, isn't it? So what is that? Things are neither existent nor non-existent. There is no such position, see. Things either have to exist or they don't exist. There's no such things as existent and non-existent at the same time, It makes no sense. There is no third possibility here. Okay? And because that brings a lot of contradictions. Like, I think we used this example before also. If we make a position that if somebody is a human being, he or she has to be either a monk or a nun, then it's a problem, isn't it? Because there are human beings who are not monk and a nun, because there is possibility again, isn't it? Right? But if you say, if somebody is a human being, has to be either, right, a male or a female, maybe then there is no third possibility in some sense, but that's my addition. Okay, Geshe didn't say that, but okay. No.
Because Shero said, "Did he come along here? Ranchi, you the major, talk by Chivini. Tini is the cousin shop, do good this. That was he said, Ranchi, you the me, is that young man, Ranchi, you around Ranchi, Queen Motor Rosamina, and the Tabashia Yorba. Got it. Till Monday, Pusu, you know, Ranchi, you the Meva Kai, Tabasha, Mirik this.
No, sure.
When Kato, you know, nobody several years, child dows. So the Packers, Kato Major, and Kato is Lana. In the nobody, several is a charge. What is it?
No, sure.
Kato, the nobody, the several Chakmara.
No.
What is it?
No. So basically, it's that we could have a debate, on the thing that if something exists, either it exists intrinsically or it does not exist intrinsically, right? Then we could have a really good debate about that because there's only two possibilities, isn't it? But if there's a third possibility, then this debate doesn't cover the whole ground, right? Then our debate, what we call the scope, has to be expanded. Just like the another example given here is if something is a color, if somebody says either it has to be yellow or a blue, well, that really doesn't require much debate because there's all kinds of other colors which are not yellow or blue, isn't it? Because there's all kinds of other possibilities, so therefore it's very important to understand the positions that is being made by the different schools of thought in order to understand the debate and what is being refuted, what is being asserted,
Okay, Dawa, Teta Ranshi, you mean Niso, Kazo Shaba, Jiri Hijala, you mean Nisu Kazo Shaba, La Lady, Bena Dembala, La Dembe Jigda, to make Kazo Shaba, Jiri Jigda to my Niso, Kazo Shaba, La Deba Hino, said the Hidon Hijaluna, Yaman Jig, Yaman Tadi, Jig Tadi Kama, Hija Yomarva. Said that till the battle then. In the Ranchi, Yaman Ranchi to check the yoga, Tadi yoga, Kojima, the Timber use a Shagmarva. Said that in the Tatiba, Ranchi, you are my Mevas in the puzzle, Jig Leon. Or this is the Gasha.
So if, the thing is that, when there are many other possibilities of, for the things to exist, then there could be a lot of more what we call arguments and contradictions that will come up. It's just like we said, things are neither existent nor non-existent. Well, that kicks a lot of issues. What does that really mean? But if you say things either exist or don't exist at all, right? There's only two possibilities, isn't it? Very clear cut, right? So which one is your position, right? We could ask that. And so in the reading, it says that in the debate, when we say that something exists, the term we use is called sheja, object of knowledge, literally translating it, okay? If something exists, if something is an object of knowledge or perception, okay, it either has to be what we call existent or non-existent. Actually, the objects of knowledge are all existent. Are you with me? Yeah. Or if something exists, it either has to exist as a single phenomenon or it exists as a multiple phenomenon. Are you with me? The two possibilities. So that's why in the theory of emptiness and analysis, and often we say, if a thing were to exist intrinsically, does it exist as one with, identical with, whatever it is, or does it exist as being different from, as being multiple from the other things, right? Because those are the only two possibilities. So that's how we do analysis in the presentation of emptiness.
Gobolo Zundo Lega, Raji Meva Nilona, Raji the Rabjo, Jesu, take Gaji, Raji Meva Nilona said that Raji Meva minus Sivarava, Raji Travari it is. But the Raji Trava, my Marva, my Tinjak, Paza, yours with the Yomar, still decom Changota.
Gombo again.
Zundo.
宣道我跟你说，你宣道也是咱的前头跟你说，
人心没把你弄到人心的上
我得录边。So there is a quote from Arya Nagarjuna's work called Refutation of Objections, or in Tibetan called Tse-dog. Tsoba means objections or arguments, and the dog means to refute it. Okay, so the quote is on the top of page 147. It reads, "If the absence of intrinsic nature were refuted, then the presence of intrinsic nature would be proven." Right? If you say that things exist intrinsically, so what are you refuting? Things are not intrinsically existent, isn't it? But if you say things are non-intrinsically existent, what's being refuted is intrinsic existence, because of those two possibilities only. What do we have here? Yeah, no, okay.
그래서 해양 대단 되바티니 최강의 풍송도비 정예와 운사매비 인사다.
No.
계속서 코너는 저기 유명라서 봐. 즉 넘버집이 즉시 용수 미지에 셔로스. 근데 제바도 시도 도바다 제도 말해서 그러다. 그러와 근데 러시아 예바에 메바티 파스라 영지 독지 영지 용은 근데 따바시아요 말아. 그 타미래로 그러와. 어디 세대 자 도바세야면 샤로 그래서 그러와. 근데 가도지야지면은
Yes. And so basically, intrinsic existence and non-intrinsic existence are mutually exclusive categories. Okay? And these are the only two possibilities in which something could exist. Are you with me? If we explore some third possibility, like, oh, no, it's kind of in between those two, like there's some kind of something about, then we will have endless debate, because there is not going to be, and that's impossible, isn't it? Either things have to exist intrinsically or they don't exist intrinsically, because those are the only two possibilities of existence, and they are mutually exclusive categories, Things cannot be like kind of intrinsic, is kind of now, like there's no kind of here and there, There is no possibility for like, that kind of thing. Okay.
어디서 다가서 이메일라서 뭔가를 풍소면 되는 이메일라요 그는 총반주의 셔로스 다 그런 대바티야 지 가서 메인바다 마이바니 공개 있이 야만 메인바다 야만 메마요 가는 차라와 이렇게 랭귀사라와 이렇게 랭귀는 여바디 메바니 지와라 와서 근데 야만이 여바인 거 야만이 메바인 거 되게 가는 마이 풍소래고 말아서 어디 무슨 동구에서라와 이렇게 다 대샤고라
So basically, the Madhyamikans pointed out to the essentialists, that these are the only two ways in which a thing could exist, right? There is no third possibility. It's mutually exclusive categories, and you should understand that, And just like the essentialists would say that, what is it? Being a human being and human and non-human are mutually exclusive categories, So in the same way, the Madhyamikans are telling them that intrinsic existence and non-intrinsic existence are mutually exclusive categories, If you assert one thing, it would exclude the other, position. So we will stop there today, page 147. What is this, volume number 3? And we welcome your questions. And the mic is there, traveling mic. Oh, then it's and gave to Carlos and yeah. Okay, hope we have not confused you. Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe, for your teaching. I'm just a little confused on not the Madhyamikan perspective, but the essentialist perspective. It doesn't make sense to me, based on some of the things that have been said here today. The idea that if things inherently exist, then they have no cooperation with each other, that they are completely separate from each other. So is there any way to make that perspective a little, I just don't get it.
Okay, let me try to answer. You say, so essentialists would say that things are intrinsically existent. So what that should mean, from other people, then things cannot be dependent on each other. There shouldn't be relative relationship, right? You mean that part?
Right, because I'm struggling with how they can deny that
Oh, the how they deny.
I affect him, and that's an intrinsic relationship.
Okay, how can they deny that? Right.
That I eat, and that affects me, and that's an intrinsic relationship. I'm just
Okay.
struggling with that complete
Okay, sure.
barrier.
Okay. Korangi kandi shwe de dirisha tanda da uma be taju ra be morang go chwe so chung sa gerwa ine ta tanda de ra ngo ma be chwe be ro ge tin ga ane be kasa ta ge rangsing du ban isla ro ge
la
tin kasa did I say things in English? No. Chwe tam je rangsing du ban isla ro ge that's why Geshe said what? I'm like I thought what is he saying? I must have said things. 최근에 랑신 두바 시대 가라게 엔텐데기 차제데 간가 엔데 콘저 케말레메 간데 차가서 배나 가라지 지단게 텐데기다 냠뇨진 샤셔로 와게 지는 가서 인데 칼라스 야벌 텐고 요레 미치기 저 데베트 와 요로 와게 텐데디게 간가 엔데 메버스 간데 슬고 오라사다데 뭐 마바게 와게 최근에 랑신 두바 시대 디게 메고로 와게 제와디 진짜 디테스 코 하고 저도사
데 카드베
코란스 거네 타나
코로데는 언제 가가 텐데 인식을 칼라사 메도 또지메다 강가 텐데 인식으로 콘도 텐데 인상 랑유 주바 일로 저 여기 뭐저 텐데 저기 말씀으로
나서
엄마비 텐데 인비 이데 랑유 뭐지 거기 도사서
라레
어디 셔고
그래서 코란 쪽에 텐데 인비 교제 랑신 두스 간다고 하서다 텐데
됐어다 코르피게 지 빼는 건저 카와세는 주고 저거로 저 주고 저야 그거 카와 그런 건 저야 누가지 메나
라레
또배 그 장례 사서 주고 시던 팬토 말세요.
알레론소.
됐어요. 고통도 됐어요.
노소.
또 엄마한테 그거 말이 또배 따서 니들이 라고로.
라레.
주고 자오듯이 막 해는 거로.
라레.
됐어요.
Yeah, Geshe said, yeah, he understand why this is kind of a difficult point. Actually, what the essentialists are saying and Madhyamikas are saying are completely antithetical to each other. They use the same reason. Okay? Essentialists say that things exist intrinsically because they are dependently existent. Are you with me? They said we accept that things, have relationship with each other. Because of that, things exist intrinsically. Okay? And Madhyamikas said, no, you got it all wrong. Because things are dependently exist, therefore they are empty of intrinsic existence. They are completely antithetical to each other. Yeah, right. Come from different direction, different understanding what dependent arising means. So now I think this Geshe example will help us. He said, for example, essentially, so would say, we accept that, when you are hungry, you eat food, okay, and then when you eat food, you feel good, right? You are full. He said the reason why that is because the food have an intrinsic quality. The food has the ability or the quality to make you feel full. See, if the food doesn't exist from its own side, then you can't eat food and then you feel full. Are you with me? See, so that's their position. They said things are dependently existent, just like you need food. You are dependent on food. You're hungry, you eat food. That's why we said things are intrinsic, because the food has intrinsic quality to make you feel full. Are you with me? And for Madhyamikas, that's just crazy sounding, And how can things have intrinsic quality to make you feel full? Things are dependent on many other causes and conditions. Are you with me? Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the essentially tell Madhyamikas, because you guys say that everything is merely imputed. He said, it's not enough to tell somebody when he's hungry, just, food is merely imputed. So are you feeling okay now? He said, no, you got to eat the food. And when you eat the food, you feel good. Why? Because the food is intrinsically existent. That's what they said. Are you with me? They said it's not enough for the things to be merely imputed by terms and concepts, because they exist from their side. You see, that's how it is. That's essentially his position. Are you with me? Yeah. Once again. Yeah.
Okay, well, this may be a follow-up to your question.
Yeah.
I probably intercepted the mic, but very briefly. Well, I believe your question is, there were so many examples given, and I don't know if it became any clearer, but the question is, why do Madhyamikas claim that intrinsically existent things could not perform functions? What is the reasoning? Just brief reason.
Okay.
Why is it?
Uma bagi chebe ina rawage kese chetam je rangshing druba ina ane chache thegi mare slide condition lagbo ore sadati desherade
됐어요. 랑유 주바이나 강을 떼봐 매봐. 강을 떼봐 매봐 해야 돼. 랑유 다 거기 채워라. 강 떼봐 매봐이나 any called some to you, something may have sort of Yaga Doga, Doga Yaga, did it San Timber or Ransha Quadira?
No.
Today, Yadu, you saw the go Yadu Doga, Sora.
No.
Said that he in the third or you'll Sora.
No.
Said third was Rangi Joe in it to do what took the go us. Said took the in the day young enjoy till any gig those.
No.
What is it?
For the Madhyamikans, if something exists intrinsically, right, from its own side, then there is no need for that thing to be produced by other causes and conditions. There is no need for that. Yeah. So therefore, something is able to stand under its own right. Okay. If that is a thing, then what is a need for a causes and conditions, right? Because it can exist on its own. And so therefore, it does not need to depend on anything else to function. Okay. And the reason that, in our world that, we can bring about change, right, good and bad changes, is because by creating different causes and conditions, we can bring those change. And there's no need to create those causes and conditions because things exist intrinsically, That's the Madhyamikan's point of view. Yeah.
Talking as so the here, then you got that come to the car meeting. Touch your over said to go. You saw the number of times you do it, and some to the New York say, what's the ganga? So you should call Yurabia, Takara Rosa did was got something under a mother of the table. What is it?
I think the question you asked is really important because in the Madhyamika they use many different variety of logics, which I said earlier. For examples, we call the logic of 4 modes of production, whether the thing is produced from self or from other or from neither both. Remember, some of you might remember that. And so in all of these things, it's very important for us to understand what does intrinsic existence really mean. Okay? What it really means is that things could exist independently in and of itself without need for any other things to do. So if that is the case, then we can say, for example, like the example we used before is if a sprout and its seed are intrinsically existent, then there's no really need for the seed to produce the sprout because the sprout could exist on its own. Okay? And so which means if a sprout could exist on its own, then it could have existed at the time of the seed as well. Well, then they cannot be cause and effect. All those fallacies would come up. That's the position. Okay. Oh, okay. Can you give the mic to a friend? Oh, you have it. Okay. Yeah.
Geshe, what is the argument that comes up between Madhyamikans and essentialists in terms of eternalism? Because this essentialist's point of view really does sound like an eternalism, and it almost sounds like it presupposes a theistic intelligence, that something has created this in advance. It almost sounds very non-Buddhist.
Right.
So I'd like to hear Geshe-la's.
Tanda di ken kunyi choba chudio kala pena tanda ngwe mao ki ken duchi di ene taktar buji cha de do sarwa terwa di ba ina taktar wa ngwe ma be duchi chorwa rangshin du sa chorwa di chebe ina di kala nangbe du da me de be sor stu so da mara ta ina ro ke nangba chen di kan de ina sa di de se so
de da tanda te yu da ko taktar long de su mu ye yang kono khatu ine ka ji log be ta dang be 이마 자갈 되는데 소소 로도 박주스 그 디갈 이 랑도 좀 시 차샤 뭐 이제 배짜샤 좀 차가려서 될 랑서 총마 그래서 봐 그것도 있는 더버지 야가 좀 그래 디가 총마도 이제 용마도 맛미마도 시 어디 하모가 시 자가서 하거니 다그 소소랄 이제 내가 디사 말해서 랄 말에는 거 샤거 다 대샤니 디그문도 세 어떻게 봐
Geshe said, as a matter of fact, from Madhyamikan's point of view, especially Prasankhya Madhyamikans, the essentialist position, as a matter of fact, is the extreme of eternalism. Okay, and but Geshe said, but essentialists wouldn't say we are, on the extreme of eternalism. They would not say that. But from Madhyamikan's perspective, that's what it is. But as Geshe said this, I think once or twice before, also he thinks that the reason is in ancient India. The way they did was a lot of the people, they would subscribe to a certain philosophical position or whatever the position that suits their own state of mind at that point of time. Okay, and then they said, okay, based upon that, now I can engage in my practice of abandonment and cultivation. Then as I see things better, then I change my position, and that's the progression they do it. But sometimes you feel like in the Tibetan, because we give so much of credence to the Pasangikas and Madhyamikas, whether we are there or not, we all like, no, I want the best, And because of that gap where we are, because we could have different positions, and then what the Pasangikas say, there's such a huge gap that sometimes it's a misfit. Then we have a struggle, like, I don't get it, So that's the, his observation. Okay, no.
당기 거기서 해야 돼. 제가 엄마가 있으라. 이제 일이잖니. 중국어도 메시아 올때 나가야지. 그 내가 제 뭐지? 야 손을 뒤차로.
And Geshe remembers, this is exactly what happened to some of the early Tibetan Madhyamikans. Remember we said, when the Hoshang Mahayana, on his side there's a whole crowd, like a whole contingent, and they call themselves Madhyamikans. We are the Madhyamikans. But the problem is they call themselves Madhyamikans, but their whole understanding Madhyamika is no way near Madhyamikans. See, that's what happens. When you do a big jump, you don't know where you are, but you claim you are that, but you're really not that, then we have an issue. You see, that happened to many early Tibetan Madhyamikans. Okay. All right, now we go back to Mr. Maya. Yeah.
Yes, I have two questions, please.
Yeah.
First question is, there has been a lot of argument about existence.
Right.
So is there any time or any place that clearly define what is existence? Or they just automatically agree that anything that can be perceived by our senses is the so-called existence?
Okay.
That's the first question. And the second question is Tathagata a non-produced phenomenon?
Okay.
That's my question, please.
Okay.
Thank
sure. Kora continue share yours again.
알레.
다 당부대디 주시 망고 집이 다 요르서 요마 지금 예매 돌주고 어바게. 세상 예세데 지 요르스 라이데 예베 코라한게 애니 친이다 마선 세부 시샤 요르베사. 레 야나 요르세데 가라서 옹불그 통보이나 주이나 요르스라 디메나 메르세 데셰 다가레 가레스다 예매세 저와게. 예세 콜이야 친이베 상마지로하게 즉 상마 요래 디면은 강가로 소설 통다 마동을 딘데 샴 딘데 저버전 요래세 가는 요마래세 가는 딘데 도대고 가래레서로하게 찍대 좋아 니바디 다다다 대신 샤바스 간 저러하게 다다가다 세디 아니 가서 두마제를 베스게 두마제베 추
가데
대신 샤바스 두마제베 추를 베스 라 레베 마레베서다 좋아 니바디 다 당고디 그냥 요새게 친이 세워 저러면서 저러하게 디지 송모르게
요새데 베다哎，别的他啥些的，别的，他眼睛的用这个语言叫了，别的他，我都看了见，谁能说过这个事情，我都看个题目是吧？是吧？他这听不起是吧？他看也是那看了谁啊？这看了可能讲呀，可能我们这个对吧？这没没，他还是可讲的什么老把大话咱这个嘛的，因为，以前没有可能我是对吧？是公的信息是吧？他的。我嘛是吧？听说的那有可能是那去要嘛的是老大一个，但这草的在老大的这地方留住我们不个，有可能当初真的你也要嘛的，现在这个嘛，他有时他来考虑没有吧？他本身他看上那些月吧，几百来的，那些月呢，看些那些的月呢，那些3岁的是手工的那边，草的那边是。因为这把就过是吧？我这是的，那对吧？咱们来聊过的。我这今天上课是这这把开要嘛是吧？看这个咱学习要的是要的是用的开要嘛。哦，这样这个。
Okay, the first, we want to ask you first, answer first question is, this kind of debate is, you're right, it's like from a common perspective, right? We can often go with our sort of valid sensory perceptions, right? If our valid sensory perception perceives something to exist, then we all agree it exists. And going back to the same example we used before, right? We all agree that when we are hungry, we need food. We eat food, then we feel fine, right? So there's agreement over that. The food exists and, and so there's no debate on that level, right? On the sensory, because whole world knows something exists, we know that. But all this kind of debate happens is from like, how do things exist? Okay. Now different positions come up, right? Essentially says things exist from their side, okay? And others say, no, things are dependently existent, things are imputed by terms and concepts, that's how it exists. So the real question here is, how do things exist? This is why it sparks all this philosophical debate, But in a conventional sense, the whole world says something exists, I'm hungry, I need food, but there's no debate over that. Yeah, you were hungry, eat something. Okay, if you're too full, don't eat. That's all there is. There's nothing to debate about that one. Okay, The second question is, then you the teaching Shabbat, teaching Shabbat, Duma Jebich, teaching Shabbat.
디식바로
Duma Jebich, what?
알리 디식바세도 말다며 디식바세는 상예로
No,
디식바로
Flood teaching about again.
디식바
Tatagata again, teaching Shabbat. Tatagata says, teaching Shabbat.
상지 디식바세도
Then the conversation
가르쳐서
again, Chugu the Nogomero, that share Omar said in the
디식바세는 상제디 냠지 뭐지 돈이 비게 냠바 샤샤바 있어요.
No, so.
现在디식니스는 돈이 명죠.
No.
뒷낭신 캔바 조의 인상现在디식바세다.
That Duma Jebich, Maris or
말을 상제다.
No, so.
건조다 상제 지도시는 다 캔바샤다 상제 코너 구수다 건지 건조 제야 될 장난들이 강가지 장난들이.
The Sanskrit term Tathagata, which is translated into Tibetan, is Tishin Sheba, in English called ones who have gone to the bliss or thus gone to bliss or something. Going by that, it is not a non-produced phenomenon. Okay, it's not a non-composite phenomenon. Because we understand the Tathagata at different levels. For example, the Tathagata could refer to the Tathagata's omniscient mind. Okay? And it is said that Tathagata is always absorbed, the omniscient mind is always absorbed into the realization of emptiness. Okay? And so in that sense, that omniscient mind is produced by causes and conditions. So it's not a non-produced phenomenon. Okay? Does that answer your question, Ms. Mai? Yeah. 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 Yeah.
단단히 책지 있는 데서 제가 단단 태조 지대 타니 나기 샤고여서 그래. 지대 타니 거 지대에서 뭐 요거 가는 거를 강바메리 최진에서 꼭 최진도 누구도 뭐 강바데 지주 지어요 말아. 다가 나기 자주 가르치다 맞아요. 그러나 그게 카도지 가르에서 시어 뭐도 근데 빠지요 말아. 태조 샤도 어디 있어? 지대 샤도 다가나 샤고여서.
No, so. Geshe wants to add this thing, said, according to Pasakika Madhyamikan, they said, we accept all the worldly conventions, okay, and we don't debate with that. Okay? If somebody says, oh, there is a church in, okay, you stands in, right? Then you say, okay, so, that stands in, right? You're not going to analyze, oh, what do you mean? Stands in his nose, or his head, or body, or where is stands in, really, where? Right? Nobody does that, right? There is stands in, I see stands in, that's fine. I say hello to him, or don't say hello, whatever, right? That's how the worldly convention exists, and Pasakika Madhyamikan say, we are fine with that. We don't debate on that, okay? Okay, we will stop there. We will have another session in the afternoon for the, Yamantaka commitment people. I call them, now I label them. So we come back at 2, okay? Those who attend the Yamantaka commitment commentary. Yes. Lulu Dome Bendo Juno, Devangara Yabja Zongava, Dele Gile, Zoe, Bedo, Nimbo Shebe, Junan, Tudin Zonja, Yamdo Shebe, Pande Lame, Yamda Rugun, Sinji, Samari, Nenjo Lajo, Yumanga, Yumi, Shedon, Degola, Yade Pesa Kundo, Yande Sona, Bendo, Show. Kunja Tase, DJ, what they were on was Seja, Nazo Jimje, Suja, Ledambe, Debe, Soja, Dizebe, Nade, Pawo Jumbo, Sawade, Chubu, Kunjo, Femini, Loborishi, one of it, Sweden, Tuja, Doranje, Veja, Duje, Gawa, Jero, DJ, do Samle, Dana Shayan, Domichi, Yande, Tembe, One teaching, Yanji, Gebe, Sonsan, Bunda, Dube, Mande, Shinye, Chodo, Nude, Mange River, Namsa, Toda, Dudo, Chebe, Taba, Chogundo, Toge, Choji, Yabo, New Jersey, Lose, Ira, Dabe, Higui, Yavan, Tobe, Pandemba, Mari, Kevan, Yaba, New Jersey, Yanda, Dagon, Choba, Kalaya, Losa, Yanden, Bembo, Labar, Shebe, Chebo, Soso, Loa, Mebe, Jindoda, Chunye, Minjo, Denjo, Samerto, all peerless, ever, for the 17 masters and adepts, Nagarjuna and Asanga, and so on. O Divankar, as well as Sovereign Father Tsongkhapa, gloriously appeared here today to grant auspiciousness on the great path leading to the heart of enlightenment. You have traversed by means of the perfect threefold discipline and have enhanced ever high the realizations of the enlightened qualities. O glorious Guru, we offer our supplications at your feet. Pray return gloriously to propagate the teaching of Lobsang. Bearable pain of sentient beings who are enveloped in the forces of five degeneration, and to open wide the lotus grove of the Buddha's teaching. May your reincarnation appear soon. O infinite Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, you are the embodiment of uncontaminated and immutable great bliss. Kindly pour on us now your blessings, rains of nectar from the great clouds of pervasive, pure, and bright wisdom and compassion, to eliminate our distress. We pray to you, an incomparable great hero. Within his mind, the threefold ethics are pure essence of the extensive system of Tathagata's teaching. Your body is the son of all wonderful qualities, but all of a sudden is set into solitary peace. You have committed before infinite Buddhas to work for Dharma and sentient being. You could not have given up your commitment. However, your presence depends on the fortunes of disciples, for the power of dependent arising is inconceivable. Please reincarnate soon as a new light of Dharma, out of your compassion that never abandons us. Please return soon as a supreme spiritual guide, a treasure house of the immense teaching of Buddha, a voice that eloquently illustrates the teaching. Please return soon as a great Dharma king, who will be known in all directions for smashing into pieces a mountain of misguided teachings and views, through the power of your thunderbolt lightning of the three reasonings. Please return soon just like your previous self, an expert in the five major sciences of Buddhism, whose eloquent words and articulation of the teaching captivate the hearts of all the scholars and activate deep appreciation in pure enthusiastic mind. Please return soon as a spiritual guide, endowed with complete knowledge, kindness, and dedication in regards to the perfect view, meditation, and conduct, one who facilitates the opening of blossom lotus, that is the golden teaching of Tsongkhapa, by the power of the three infallible jewels, by the power of dependent rising of unchanging emptiness, by the truth of our pure thoughts and devotion. May all our aspirations be spontaneously fulfilled. Namo. Thiên thang đổ lại tư trì trên đầm kiến thành đã gái, ngày về sẽ vừa đúng em thúc về bá đàn gỗ lỗ, rồi là phát về bá đồng với vị bố trì hành chứng, tôn sư vẫn còn tư chính thêm bố sầm lên là, chứ mong cho lại phong vụ kiến bệ bá bập bóp sáng, bằng sư đã chạc đại đồ nín mình thiên thổ thư viện, rồi lại có thầm tu bì đã ngồi với thời kiến. Thông vì bố phụ trong cuộc không ngờ mãn đục nữ dù thai vốn mờ bán ngày vướng sừng góp lại phát thai trên mai tái sanh nói chuyện hiếm đàn của người tu trình.
Tùy phước đệ tử mà Ngài hiện thế, lý nhân duyên chẳng thể khôi phục hàng tâm, hiền giả cảm nhận hồng ân nước lòng, xin mong trở lại là bậc đạo sư, thiên thư thông thái mẫn từ tận tâm, chánh kiến định mạng chuyên cần, ươn sen nén niệm hương vân phát đàn, của tông các ba y ngọc lời vàng, do thần lực tam bảo linh ứng, do thần lực duyên khởi tương ưng, với tánh không bất nhị bất trùng, do tâm lực trí thành cùng vinh hướng, xin cho sở luyện chúng đệ tử được tức thời viên mãn. Hãy subscribe cho kênh Ghiền Mì Gõ để không bỏ lỡ những video hấp dẫn